Stop me if you've heard this before. A dungeon master says they want to run a gritty, low fantasy game, something along the lines of Game of Thrones or the Witcher series. And just when you're ready to get started, your totally original, suspiciously Henry Cavill-looking character in tow, you discover the dungeon master is merely using this premise to get freaky with your character. Unfortunately, there have been many such cases of this kind of attitude that have pervaded the D&D scene, with an abusive DM picking on players that just want to play tragic heroes in foreboding worlds, as opposed to your traditional fantasy romp. So what if, in this world where there are no chosen ones, that the DM decides that there are actually, in what might possibly be the weirdest way possible? And so, without further ado, let's gather up a murder and dive right into this story. So this was a while ago, but I still think about it every time someone says, "My game is low fantasy." Let this be a warning to anyone who's ever been tricked into fantasy hell by a DM with an agenda. I love tabletop RPGs, and was really looking forward to a low fantasy gritty world to play. No elves, no wizards, no magical bloodlines. A cruel and painfully grounded world. Think mud, rusted swords, and dying of a chest cold in a pigsty. So when a guy I met online, let's call him Mark, pitched a campaign called Ashes of the Iron Realm, promising no magic, no fantasy races, and absolutely no chosen one crap, I was 100% in. I made a female hedge knight with the average generic tragic backstory of having her village burned down by northern raiders, and she vowed to protect innocents, and I made a personal objective of making a better living for the common folk and innocents. She almost always donates most of her money to build an orphanage for the village kids that lost their parents. Mark was intense, but in that way GMs sometimes are. He kept messaging me outside of group chats to say things like, "Your character concept is so unique. I've never met a player with your depth before," which was odd, but I brushed it off. He said he liked how I understood suffering, which should have been a red flag, but I was excited to play. Anyway, the campaign starts. Everyone makes broken, gritty characters. A disgraced sellsword, a plague doctor that sounded insane, a peasant girl who burned her village down. Real bleak stuff. We're loving it. Session 1's great. It's all political tension, hunger, plague, angry mobs. Perfect. Session 2. We meet a hermit who speaks in riddles and has a third eye. Mark says it's just old superstition. Okay, weird, but I let it go. Session 3. Sellsword finds a sword wrapped in red vines that sings when drawn. I point out that sounds magical. Mark insists, "It's just metallurgy and ancient craftsmanship. People back then believed anything." Sure, whatever. But by session 5, things are getting blatant. Plague Doctor gets marked by a dream stag. An NPC heals someone by touching their chest and whispering in a forgotten tongue. A tree starts bleeding. I'm squinting at the screen like, is this a fever dream? So I message Mark privately. "Hey, I thought this was a no magic setting." He replies, "This isn't magic. It's the mystic truth. There's a difference. You of all people should understand that." What? He follows up with, "There's just something about the way you write your character. It's like you're meant for deeper things. Most players, they make little dolls, but your character feels real, like something old and sacred, something fertile." Okay, yep, that's exactly where I assumed this was going. Not only does the GM have the hots for OP's character, he's also turned her into the de facto main character. This can't possibly go wrong. "Hey DM, I got this new concept for a character. She's a tragic swordswoman who serves as a knight trying to do good in a terrible—" Did you say sword woman? I mean, yeah, she's a knight who valiantly defends her— How fertile is she? What? How fertile is your character? I mean, that doesn't really have anything to do with her story. How fertile is she? I don't know. Well, guess what? We're gonna play to find out. Roll for cervix measurements. What is wrong with you? Roll it! I actually thought I had to reread that last word because I thought I misread it. I hadn't. The weird vibe escalates from there. Every session, Mark gives me special visions, glimpses of a woman giving birth, or whispers from the forgotten goddess of fertility beneath the world. My character becomes the only one who can see the true nature of things. I ask him to tone it down, and he says, "I just think your character is more open to the mythical world. Maybe because of who's playing her?" Excuse me? It all comes to a head in Session 7, when the party visits a ruined abbey and meets an ancient cult leader named Severin the Hollow-Eyed. This guy starts ranting about the bloodline of iron and womb of stars, and then just straight up says to my character, "You must lie with me, vessel of rebirth. The child we make shall be the chosen one." Silence. I literally shouted in the call. What the fuck did he just say? Mark. It's part of the prophecy. He's an old man. He's not serious. He just believes he's destined to sire the hero. I responded, "Yeah, that's worse." One of the other players DM'd me after and said, "Hey, that was uncomfortable. Are you okay?" That's when I realized I wasn't overreacting. I left the campaign right after that session. Mark messaged me, saying I was abandoning the sacred arc and that my character had a responsibility to the story. He even wrote a paragraph-long bit of lore about how the bloodline is now broken and the world will suffer. Good. Let the world burn. I just wanted to play a miserable knight who dies a tragic death while trying to make the world a better place. I'm glad this player was on guard the whole time and realized that this was a lot of bullshit, and that they immediately caught on that this dungeon master is trying to be a different kind of dungeon master, minus the consent. If I had a nickel for every time I read a story about a game of gritty fantasy that was actually just a disguise for someone's breeding fetish, I'd have enough money to start a crypto rug pull scheme called Birdcoin or something, and retire off the money that I made after gaslighting my community that it wasn't actually a big deal, and that you totally could have made as much money as me, even though only myself and a small group of friends own the majority of the coin shares, and we planned on selling them all at the same time. Was that too specific of a reference? Sorry, I've been catching up on some CoffeeZilla videos lately. Anyway, the point is, don't advertise your game as something that it isn't. Don't be a freak that uses D&D to harass your players. And please, for the love of God, don't turn a tragic character into a broodmother for some weird kink stuff that the player has made clear they are definitely not interested in. Anyway, next post. This didn't happen to me. I was at a game store playing Memoir with a buddy, where a TTRPG public game was happening at the table next to us. The DM seemed to be running a game that was introducing a bunch of people to TTRPGs. He had a decent-sized group, with like 6 or 7 people, with a near-even split of men and women. It sounded like he was running a Cthulhu-type game, set in the Scooby-Doo universe. Like Zoink Scoob! That's the Elder God Nyarlathotep! Roll for insanity! I don't need to, Raggy! Scoob! Where'd you get that mask, man? I'm not wearing a mask, Raggy. And Velma just took a shotgun blast to the fucking face and died. I mean, after seeing that Mindy Kaling show, I could understand why. The guy at the other end of the table asks if he could grope Velma's dead body. The DM, stunned by this, says, really? Her entire face is shotgun blasted away. The guy confirms that he wants to do it. The DM says, okay, well, you do that then. Alright, it's where we're at, I guess. The guy on the end has an incredibly satisfied look on his face, and I look at the girl sitting next to him. I watch her face as I see, in real time, her internally decide that she's never playing an RPG ever again. Look, at that point, you just turn the other barrel to that player and tell him to get the hell out of your table. This is absolutely disgusting for so many reasons, and I don't need to explain them, do I? If someone does something weird like this, don't encourage it, don't yes-and it, hit them with the other part of improv. No, but. No, you can't grope this body, but you can get the hell out of my table, and kindly never show your face here again. That's pretty much the only way to deal with freaks like this, honestly. Anyway, next post. A few months ago, I was part of a wonderful virtual D&D 5e game that had a sudden turn at the very end. The participants were the couple, 2 players who came as a unit, Warlock and Sorcerer. Rocky, don't remember his class, but he threw rocks. The Oni, Warlock Barbarian, my character's bestie and a nice player. the DM, a random guy I found on a forum, and me with my character, the GOAT. LeBron James, they got you in this game? Holy shit. Oh, she's just a small goat woman and a bard. Oh, whatever. Missed opportunity in my opinion. We were 5th or 6th level. We'd been playing a couple months by the time our final game came around. Honestly, everything had been normal, and things progressing as usual. I felt like we kind of sped through any NPC or social interactions, and I started to realize the rotation was to go to the castle, get a quest, minimal dialogue, then go do a dungeon for the session. It's not my favorite way to play, but the players really made up for it. We had wonderful dialogue between each other, and it seemed like the DM was cool to let that happen. I admit I felt pride at the positive attention from the party with how much they loved the GOAT. Becoming the party mascot naturally felt great, and I performed my role proudly. All of that to say, everybody loved having me there, and specifically the character I performed brought a lot of energy to the table. Well, after being rushed out of the castle again, the party made their way to some ruins for the next leg of our adventure. We hadn't met any definitive big bad evil guy yet, but it seemed like we were getting close with how dangerous things were getting. Oh, and there were a lot of close calls during that session. There were giant centipedes hiding in marshy waters with a deadly venom. The party managed to resist or avoid most of the bites, just narrowly. But our NPC follower wasn't so lucky, and looked rough for the rest of the dungeon. We fought through demons and centipedes, had the ground crumble beneath our feet to lava pits, and defeated shambling bones infused with hydrated plant life before we even reached the entrance to the ruins' interior. The entire time I felt really proud of myself. I had been doing quite well in maintaining the health of the party, and preventing multiple downs or even deaths. In the last battle with the shambling bones, I had even prevented the Oni from going down twice. In character, the party was feeling rough and beaten, but we still had to progress into the ruins to find our MacGuffin. We took a moment to sit down and plan/recoup. We even had some cute roleplay moments. Eventually, the dungeon master had voices whispering to the couple, egging them to go into the ruin and interrupting our short rest. We went in and had to fight back against supposedly respawning ghosts. That is to say, we were being encouraged not to take a rest, even though our characters were knocking on death's door. So we just kept going. We fight through and get to a room with 4 statues. Our poor NPC friend, who I'd been literally keeping above water in that last room, was laid down to rest while the venom kept getting worse. We tried to short rest again and got through it, but the DM kept insisting something was coming and that something was going to happen. But I think our party agreed we'd just have to deal with it because we couldn't keep going on without a rest. The DM declares after an hour of rest, a wind spirit guardian of some sort attacks us, telling us it must protect the prisoners. Those statues were actually the petrified bodies of some world-ending threats, apparently. And our MacGuffin wasn't even in this room. We tried to insist we weren't trying to free the prisoners, but the spirit attacked anyway. After preventing another death with a heal spell, the DM declares one of our party members gets thrown into the statues by the spirit, and it lands in the water, unleashing a 12-foot-tall Oni who then gave the rest of his pals a soak. At this point, I'm getting baffled by the turn of events. A fight breaks out, but the spirit abandons the fight and leaves us with the world-ending threats. The NPC is knocked down into death saving throws. Oh, wait. No, he wasn't. The moment he went down, the venom activated and turned him into a faceless, mindless demon of sorts. Really messed up stuff. The newly discovered BBEGs decide we're not worth the slaughter, and even professes to be interested in the Oni in our party. They left, and our party tried to pick up what scraps we had left of ourselves. The tension between characters is high. Some scathing roleplay words are exchanged, and eventually characters decide it's best to keep going. Everybody's having a great time, or so I thought, and I was so pleased with how the narrative between characters was developing. We start exploring the lower area. A man offering a puzzle shows up. We do his puzzle, and we move forward. I think it was, "Here's the key," or "You could take the poop bag." But the real key was in the poop bag or something. Rookie mistake. Everybody knows you should keep your keys inside of your milk drawer. Keys, phone, wallet, birth certificate. All the important stuff goes in the milk drawer. Everybody knows this. Anyway, back to the story. We keep going and eventually get to the part of the ruin that's crumbled into a cliff face. but the DM says my character notices a footpath in the cliff face that my little goat could traverse to get to a separated part of the hall. I take note of it, but decide I'd rather wait for the party to be together first. Some conversations happen between characters before the DM insists to me that I should take a look at the separated area. So, I hop over, the one other person ready to follow me getting blocked off instantly by the sudden appearance of a solid wall. I assume the DM knows what he's doing. The goat meets an old man who's willing to speak with her. He invites her into a room with history etched into the pillars. I only get as far as being shown the pillars before we're taken back to the rest of the party. They continue down the hall and to the next puzzle before the DM comes back to me. He asks me if the goat will have been talking to this old man for a minute. I said, sure, I guess she talked to him for a minute or two. The DM asked me to make a constitution save and a wisdom save. My first not so great rolls of the night gave me double 7s. The DM declares my character is dead. He then explains the person I'm talking to was casting a spell on me that kills a person instantly if the caster speaks to them for 1 minute. I don't know how else to describe his voice other than seemingly giddy. Certainly more energetic than it had been all night. He gets ready to move on, but everybody was stunned silent. I think he realized something, and in the middle of saying I could make a new character, he pivoted and said I could start making death saving throws. The whole time I'm making them, he says nobody in the party knows where I am, and nobody can physically get to me. Well, I missed 2, made 2, then the final one was a miss. I could almost hear the DM exhale before he said, "Alright, you're welcome to start making a new character and we can reintroduce you next session." I said, "Okay, that's alright." Initially, I just felt bad and defeated. Like, I was ready to be a big girl and accept the loss of a loved character, but something just didn't feel right about any of that. I spoke up again a couple seconds later and said, "Wait, no, that's not alright. I don't like what just happened and I feel like I didn't get a choice in it." The DM told me what happened was fair. He didn't know what I was talking about, and that he just let me roll, so it's fine. But I wasn't taking any of those as valid excuses for just declaring my character dead and locking me off from the rest of the party to make sure I'd die. I told the call that I have to go think, but that I'd talk to them later. Well, the moment I hit that disconnect call button, I'm kicked from the server. The events after that were communicated to me via the Oni's player. The DM said that instant deaths like that were on the table and that they would happen again. The couple were immediately unhappy with this decision, and said that if the goat wasn't part of the game, that they didn't really have anything else keeping them there. Rocky said he didn't know it was that type of game, and left as well. The Oni kept getting the same excuses as to how killing the goat was fair and fine to do. The Oni did the math on the rolls after learning the passing number, and communicated that my character only had a 45% chance of making those rolls to avoid instant death. From the goat's official death to the server being emptied of players, it was 30 minutes. I was pretty much just left with my thoughts after that, but I started to realize some things after that session. It was really lethal. We thought it was just a really tough dungeon, but now that I think about it, everything was designed to kill our characters. If we hadn't avoided the venom, some of our downed NPCs would have instantly died. If we had missed the deck save on those lava pits, I bet it would have been instant death. The 2 giant mini-bosses, before we even get into the ruin who did massive numbers that were only softened by me playing my role as a bard well. I was left to wonder why in the world he was trying so hard to kill us suddenly, and if maybe me preventing so many deaths as our only supportive character made me a target for the DM. The hostility was so sudden. Well, at least I came out of that game with some wonderful artwork and memories of that party. I guess the great part of the DM being reluctant to engage us in RP is that he's oddly barely in my memories of that game. It really was mostly made by the wonderful players, which is a shame, because I don't deny the DM had a wonderful world and interesting story to tell. He even insisted we write complex backstories to implement into the game. I had been working with him for a while on developing the goat into his world, but I guess none of that mattered by the end. Somebody had to die, and I guess I was the person he lost his patience with. TLDR, DM got bloodthirsty to kill a party member and railroaded my character to an early grave after saving the player characters multiple times. Fairness is intertwined with lethality. This is something I've talked about in the channel a lot. Say if a trap in a dungeon would kill you instantly, like a giant pitfall that goes all the way down into the Underdark, it should be obvious that that is exactly what will happen if you take a leap unprepared. So if you want something lethal to be fair, you need to be able to have recognizable features that convey danger, so that players can then discover these features and act accordingly. The more dangerous a problem, the more obvious it should be that it is dangerous. Just take one look at a beholder and you know something's up with those eyes. You can have a creature with a death beam that kills you instantly, controversial take, and that can even be a fun ability to deal with as a player, but it needs to be something that can be interacted with. So if you make it obtuse, if that mega death beam doesn't feel like it would kill you instantly, and I didn't really get a choice in how to respond to it, then all the player feels when they get hit by it is deflated. They won't see it as making a mistake that got their character killed. They'll see it as a mistake for having joined your game to begin with. This is especially true if you're playing in a game that primarily focuses on roleplay. Their death is gonna feel stupid and unearned. Cheap shock value to rattle the players instead of an interesting situation with dire consequences. If presenting players with BS gotcha moments counts as compelling and challenging gameplay, then the Tomb of Horrors was the greatest D&D module ever written. And why would you even want to have these BS moments? You as a DM can just say rocks fall, everyone dies, and just end the campaign. Killing your players is easy, it's cheap. Like buying a gas station burrito or taking your mom out on a Saturday night. So even from a DM's perspective, isn't it more fun to put your players in an interesting situation and watch them try to untangle it, rather than just hitting them with easy gotchas to kill their characters to put them in their place or whatever? Death is a consequence, but it's a consequence that must be earned through actions. So if the players get no say in how their death happens, then it's not gonna feel like this big, heavy moment, it's just gonna fall flat. And that's where we're gonna end today's stories. And if you'd like these stories and you'd like to see more of them, then please consider subscribing to the channel and liking this video. Patrons are gonna pop up on screen while I talk, as I just want to apologize for the rant at the end of this story, but I've seen a lot of new game masters make mistakes like the one in this story. And I have a lot to say about this mentality, as it's one I've personally had in my own first games that really burned some of my early players. I don't want other game masters to have to go through these kinds of mistakes if they can avoid them, so I hope whoever needed to listen to this heard me. Once again, a special thank you to my patrons, and I will see you all next time, as the crow flies.